Good evening, everybody, and welcome. Welcome to Hardboiled English Live. I'm your humble host and grammar detective, Paul Duke, and I'm streaming to you live from Vancouver, Canada. It is December 2nd, 2022, if you can believe it. And we're streaming to Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter, Twitch, Africa TV, and others. Wherever you are in the world, whichever platform you happen to be watching on, welcome to my show. On this show, I investigate your English mysteries right here live. By English mysteries, I mean grammar questions or sentence structures that baffle you, that confuse you, that mystify you. And tonight we have an excellent question sent in to me by Nayana from Sri Lanka. Now, if you'd like me to answer your question, your English mystery, if you want your English mystery solved on this show, please prepare a 1 minute or less video clip of you asking the question and perhaps giving me an example of the sentence that confuses you. And you can send it directly to my email, hardboiledenglish6@gmail.com. I'll build a show around it. Okay? Now, before we get to tonight's English mystery, I'd like to say hello to everyone. So wherever you are in the world, please say hello in the chat box and tell me what country you're watching from. Who do we have with us tonight? We have Chris from Belgium already. Chris, longtime viewer, very, very dedicated viewer. Thank you for joining us, as always, Chris. Hopefully the new show hour isn't too late in Belgium. But thanks for joining the show. Who else is with us? Please say hello in the comment thread. Oh, we have Pedro. Pedro is in Brazil. Great. Thank you for joining us, Pedro. Great to see you here. We have Facebook user. Now, one thing you'll notice, guys, is that if you're watching the show on a Facebook group, all I can see is Facebook user. I cannot see your name. So please say hello and tell me what country you're in. So we have Canada. Someone's in Canada. We have Nelba from Vancouver. Hi, Nelba. We have Daniel from Switzerland. Great. We have Jean Silvio from Brazil. Great. Great to see you all here. Thank you for joining us. We have Nayana from Sri Lanka. Welcome to the show, Nayana. Thank you for joining me. We're going to get to your question pretty soon, so just stay with us, and we're going to examine your English mystery. We're going to solve it too. I'm confident. We have Chris from Brazil watching. Hi, Chris. Welcome to the show. Thank you for joining us. By the way, guys, how's your World Cup soccer team, football team doing? Please tell me in the chat box, how's your team doing? Well? Poorly? Will they be successful? Who's going to win the World Cup? Tell me. I know Canada's out, apparently. My country is Canada. Actually surprising to have a team in the World Cup this year. You know, football, or soccer as we call it here, is popular, but not that popular. And people growing up have many different sports to choose from. So not everyone plays soccer or football, whatever you want to call it. And of course, we have a small population in my country. So there isn't the talent pool to draw from and to really put together a world-class team. So it's actually amazing that Canada put together a team for the World Cup. Just being there was pretty amazing. So how's your team doing in your country? We have Berta from Colombia joining us. Welcome to the show, Berta. And Nelba is in Vancouver, the same city as I am, but I believe Nelba originally came from somewhere in South America. I want to say Venezuela, but I'm not sure. I can't remember exactly. Who else is with us? If you're just joining us, please say hello in the chat box and tell me what country you're watching in. Oh, Venezuela. Yeah, I thought so. Great. Berta says, I think Brazil is going to win the World Cup. Okay, good. We have Satoru from Boston. Hi, Satoru. Welcome. How's Boston? I think Boston is probably cold at this time of year, isn't it? Boston's a nice city, but it's usually very cold. My Fluent podcast says Switzerland won against Serbia today, 2-3. They passed to the next round. Okay, great. And shall I assume your team is Switzerland? Excuse me. Great to have you all with us. My Fluent podcast. What country are you in? Are you in Switzerland? I think you're a new viewer of this show. Thank you for joining us. It's great. Okay, great. Well, thank you for joining us. Really happy to have you here. If you want, please put the link to your podcast in the chat box so we can all check out your projects. Great. So Satoru travels around a lot, and he says, it's cold in Boston compared to Taiwan. Yeah. Oh, Kaneko. Okay. Perhaps I've made a mistake. Yeah, okay, great. Who else is with us? Oh, I see Yuming. Hi, Yuming. Yuming is in Japan. Welcome. Jean Silvio says, I would like to thank you for this exceptional meeting every week. You're welcome. Great to have you with us. I'm so happy. By the way, this should be a T in English, except E-X-E-P-T, not C. In English, the sound shianal, or shun, except shun, is made with T-I-O-N, okay? It's a little tip for you. Exception, excepcional, we use a T, not a C. Spanish and Portuguese, I believe, use the C, right? Not English. But importantly, you are welcome. I look forward to doing this show every week. It's fun. It's great to connect with all of you around the world and hear your news, hear your World Cup news, hear about your struggles with English or your successes. It's just great to connect with you all. In fact, that is why I started this show. I didn't start this show to be famous or to be popular, any of that crap. I started this show because the pandemic struck down the language learning world and isolated everyone, and I wanted to remain connected to my students, fellow teachers, and language learners around the world. So that's really at the core of this show. Although I, have some fun playing detective too. The real reason for my show is to connect with all of you and hopefully help you understand English grammar a little bit better each week. Okay? So I do appreciate that. Oh, sorry. Well, ladies and gentlemen, let's see. Before I get to our English question of the day, I'm also interested in learning about you and what you want. What sort of English grammar problems remain a challenge for you? Please tell me, and perhaps we can build our show around it. Joining us now is Yasir. Yasir Alanazi, good to see you. Good to see you too. Thank you for joining. What country are you watching the show in? Are you somewhere in Canada, US, Middle East, Europe, Asia? Where are you? Wherever you are, I hope you're doing well. That's the ultimate thing, but always curious. So far in the viewer feed tonight, we have Brazil, Colombia, we have Canada, Taiwan, the US, Boston, we have Switzerland with us, Brazil. Okay. So Jodel is saying, I have learning English for 3 years, but I think my progress is too slow. Are you trying to be fast? Why is slow a problem? My grammar is too poor. I need help in tenses. Okay, good. If you'd like, Jodel, please make a video with your specific grammar question, and send it to my email address, and we'll make a show with your question, okay? Okay, Yasser says he's in Virginia, USA. Okay, wonderful. I hope you're enjoying Virginia. Pedro says, Teacher Paul, how would you teach someone with difficulties of using preposition? Well, there's several ways I would teach it. First of all, I would identify what prepositions do in a sentence, and they have one job to do, which is always the same. Prepositions connect nouns. That's what they do. They connect nouns to all other words. And the fact that it says preposition means they always come before nouns. So I would teach students that that's the function of a preposition. That's their job in a sentence. That's important because a student or learner needs to know that a preposition is always followed by a noun. I would also go through the most common prepositions and describe what they mean. For example, the preposition to connects a noun of destination. For example, I ran to the mall. I left home, so I traveled from home to the mall. And the preposition for connects nouns of reason. This pen is for the board or for writing. That's the purpose. In, right? I have pens in the glass container. So in connects the container. So that's the meaning of each preposition. But then I would give your learners lots of practice connecting. And this also relates to phrasal verbs because a phrasal verb is a verb plus preposition combination. And if that's a preposition, eventually it'll be followed by a noun. But usually when you're having a noun, when you have a noun in your sentence, you have to choose a preposition. But if you learn your phrasal verbs, you don't have to choose the preposition because it's automatic with the phrasal verb. For example, turn on the lights. Not turn at the lights, not turn with the lights, not turn between the lights. That has a meaning, turn on. Or a phrasal verb like look forward to. That's a phrasal verb. Look forward to. That whole thing is the verb or the predicate. It expresses the action. And here the to, it does not connect with an infinitive verb. Here the to connects with a noun. Look forward to something. I look forward to dinner. I look forward to the movie. I look forward to meeting you. That's a gerund, which acts as a noun. I look forward to the movie. All of these are nouns. So I would give students a chance to practice building sentences. But the good thing about phrasal verbs is if you learn them, and really you just have to learn them, memorize a list if you have it. I can get you a list. Or learn them by using them and reading them and absorbing them. Then you don't have to choose the preposition. Right? Look forward always goes with to. Or listen to. Music. That's a phrasal verb that always comes with listen. We don't say listen for music, ever. Not possible. Listen to music. Okay? So I think phrasal verbs can help you with prepositions because then you don't have to choose a preposition. The phrasal verb has its own, dedicated. Okay, Jean Silvio, you're talking about present perfect. That's a great question. One thing I would suggest, guys, is if you have a specific question about a sentence or a specific grammar point, make me a video. Send me the video to this email address, hardboiledenglish6@gmail.com, and I'll build the whole show around it. Okay? But I like to have a video to start with because, as you'll see shortly, it gives us a focus point, and that focus can generate more questions about different aspects of the topic. Otherwise, if we just talk about, for example, present perfect, that could be a 2-hour lesson, right? So it's better if we have a focus. This is a good question. Not related to language or grammar. What is your favorite hard-boiled detective novel? I probably have it close by. Gosh. Where is it? Oh dear. I just saw it the other day. My favorite hard-boiled detective novelist is Ross MacDonald. Ross MacDonald. He was writing in the late 1940s and 1950s. And he wrote some great novels. My favorite of which is called The Way People Die. Great novel, The Way People Die. Check that out if you have it. I thought I had it close by, but I wasn't expecting a question about my favorite detective novel. So, great question. I just wish I could show you that book. Somehow I don't have it. Anyways, great questions, guys. But, as I said, please send me your questions in the form of a video, and then I'll build the show around it. Now, this question about, where is it now? Have been, blah, blah. I want to give you a link to one of my videos that explains present perfect in big detail, really in depth. Now, this is an episode of my series called English Weirdness. I'll put the link in the chat. My series English Weirdness is a series that I made with my students that feature like a little drama, a little story, grammar explanation. It's got animations of the grammar. So I recommend checking out my series on YouTube, English Weirdness. And by the way, if you're not already a subscriber to the channel, please subscribe to the channel. The channel is called The Grammar Detective. Okay? And this is my long-form series. And I just put the link in the chat box to the episode all about present perfect. Now, warning, we made it for Halloween, so it's sort of a horror movie. It's got a little bit of a scary story built into it, okay? So if your nerves are strong, check that out. It's an episode of English Weirdness. I'm very proud of that series. My students worked really hard on this series, and we made something I think that's pretty different, pretty special. Okay, so check that out. Okay, oops, let me get rid of that. So yeah, you can find that right there on the channel, The Grammar Detective. We have joining us Wilson from Ecuador. Great. Great to have you with us, Wilson. So yes, here's the link to the YouTube video, my web series called English Weirdness. And this episode is all about have been, have had, all that stuff. We have Khan joining us. What country are you watching from, Khan? But great to have you with us. Say hello in the comment box, guys, and tell me what country you're watching from. It's great to get a sense of where everyone is. Well, guys, if you're ready, I think it's time we get to our English Mystery of the Week. Joining us now is Kira Sage, Matt Tessel. Great to see you. Great to see you. Thank you for joining the show. Ahmed from Pakistan. Welcome, welcome, welcome. How's your football team doing? Do you guys have a football team in the World Cup? I'm not a soccer or football fan, so I'm not following it. All I know is my country, the Canadian team, lost. So Joral is in the Philippines. Welcome to the show. Great to have you with us. Great to see you. So many countries represented here. It's fabulous. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, if you're ready, I think it's time to get to our English mystery of the evening and get down to some work. So, if you're ready, let's investigate this week's English mystery.
Hi, Teacher Paul. I'm Naina from Sri Lanka. I have an English mystery for you to investigate. Sometimes I'm confused to use conjunctions. So most of the time I feel self-conscious to use than rather than and whether. So I really want to know what are the differences between these conjunctions. Are there any special rules to use them? So I really want to know how to use them.
Thank you, Nayana, for that great question. And I'm sure it's a question many of you have asked and perhaps heard an answer, perhaps not. Perhaps you've heard an explanation that didn't satisfy you. That's what this show is all about. I'm going to break it down for you, and you can ask me questions about the topic once we get into it a little bit, okay? So hold on to your questions for a few minutes, and let me go through this. Now, Nayana is asking us about these conjunctions. 3 words, than, well, 3 words and phrases, than, rather than, and whether. And she sounds like she's confused about how to use them and what the differences are and the rules involved. Now, in previous shows, those of you who watch regularly know how I feel about rules. I don't look at grammar as a series of rules. There are some rules, but I want you to think of them as patterns. Patterns that convey a meaning. Okay? And if you want this meaning, you're going to have to follow that pattern. So it is kind of a rule. But like laws in our societies, there's a lot of exceptions. There's sometimes where the rule or the law doesn't feel just, and some people will break it because they don't believe in it. In grammar, our goal is to communicate an idea, and it's the grammar structure that delivers or expresses that idea. Different grammar structure, different idea. So we want to be able to control the different structures so we can convey our different meanings. That's our goal. Our goal is not to follow rules. Instead of rules, I want you to think about patterns, relationships. Okay, that's what syntax is. Syntax refers to the relationship between words in a sentence. In other words, the structure. So it's what's underlying grammar. It's working with grammar. So on this show, I want to expand our idea of what grammar is. It's not just rules to follow. That's not very helpful. It's okay when you're a super beginner, when you're really first learning, you want to hold on to some steady rules, right? It helps you grasp the basics. But what you're actually doing is learning the basic structures. Now that you're more intermediate or advanced level, you really have to understand how these structures work to create meaning. Now, Nayana has given us 3 words, than, rather than, and whether. Now, you might ask, if they all have the same meaning, why do we need 3 of them? Well, it probably tells us that they're not the same meaning. We have 3 different words or phrases because they connect and convey 3 different meanings, and they work in 3 different ways in a sentence. So it's good to understand how they work, how they function in a sentence, and what each one of them means. Maybe the meaning is similar, maybe it's very different. So I recommend when you're confused, the first step is to look at the dictionary. Okay, so I've prepared 3 dictionary entries from the Oxford Learner's Dictionary. That's my preferred dictionary. I want to share that with you. Okay, the first one. Than. Let's look at than. We need to know what part of speech it is, what job it does in the syntax of the sentence. What it says right here, it's a preposition and a conjunction. And as I said a little bit earlier, what do prepositions do? What's their function? Prepositions connect nouns. Right? Preposition, pre. Pre means before. They come before nouns. Okay? After verbs, after other nouns, after adjectives, doesn't matter. They come before nouns. Okay? So that's a preposition. What about conjunctions? Conjunctions connect not just nouns, they connect clauses. Okay? A conjunction connects clauses. What's a clause? Well, a clause is made of a subject and a verb, right? Minimum. And if you have more than one, you need to connect them with a conjunction. So this is conjunctions connect clauses. Now, there are different kinds of clauses. There are independent clauses, complete ideas, complete thoughts. That's an independent clause. It has a subject and a verb, or a subject and a predicate, if you like. Predicate is the whole verb package, because sometimes it's not just one word. Like in present perfect, we have been. I have been to Brazil. Have been. That's two verbs creating the predicate. Anyway, a clause needs those two, but it also has to be a complete idea for an independent clause. But we also have dependent clauses, and we're going to look at that in a moment. And a dependent clause has a subject and a verb, but it is not a complete thought, not a complete idea. So that's prepositions and conjunctions. What does than mean? Well, it's used to introduce the second part of a comparison. That's interesting. A comparison. Let's look at the next entry. Rather than. So rather is an adverb on its own, combined with than, which we know is a preposition or conjunction. So this is going to function as a preposition or conjunction in a sentence, but this little extra word relates this whole phrase to a verb because this is an adverb. So it's sort of adding a connection to the verb. That's helpful. Third word, whether. Whether is a conjunction only. It's not a preposition. That means whether does not connect nouns. That's useful and that's important to know. And by the way, what's the meaning of rather than? It means instead of somebody or something. Instead of, in place of. What does weather mean? Not the climate weather. This weather means to express a doubt or choice between two possibilities. Okay? Now, why is this important? Why is a dictionary entry important when you're learning how to use this stuff? Simple. The parts of speech look similar. Preposition, conjunction with a little adverb sprinkled on it. Down here we have a conjunction. So they're all kind of doing the same job, more or less. But the big difference is what they mean. Just the sentences used in these definitions are three different sentences. These are three different meanings that work together in a sentence as a structure to express a different meaning. So these are not interchangeable. You can't just use them all for the same purpose. Wrong, because they all have different meanings. And even if they're doing the same job of connecting clauses or nouns, they're expressing a different meaning, right? So we want to be able to use all three. So far, so good? Based on this, guys, do you have any questions? Let me know about this. We're going to move forward. Just give me a moment to clear the board. Teachers out there, if you're interested in a very good whiteboard spray that dries almost instantly, Expo Whiteboard Care is my preferred product. And by the way, there's a link below where you can purchase your product if you're interested. Yes, Gerald, I will use it in a sentence in a moment, but what I'm saying is right now, do you have any questions about these? Okay? Examples are coming. Okay. In that case, I'll shut this off. The show's an hour long, guys, so be patient. This is not the end of the show. There's more to come, including examples. Okay. I take it this is clear. Let's move on. Okay. Now, We said they're prepositions or conjunctions. The problem with that, to make that more complex, we have two different kinds of conjunctions. Actually, three or four, but we're going to look at a couple. Let me give you a sentence example. Let's start with than. How to use than. And we'll compare them. I have some examples prepared for you. Paul runs more slowly. More slowly. Now, more is a comparative adjective or adverb. So we need something to compare it with. Paul runs more slowly. Who's the other thing, the other person who also runs that we can compare them to? Well, over here we have Tim runs. So Tim runs and Paul runs. But Paul is more slowly than Tim. Now let's identify the parts of the sentence so we can understand what's happening here. Paul is the subject. Runs is the verb. This is an adverb. This is an adjective modifying the adverb. More slowly. It's a comparative adjective. Now, there's other kinds of comparatives. We talked about it last week, actually, when I talked about the rabbits, right? Taller, smaller, bigger, smaller, taller, shorter, right? This is also a comparative adjective. So look what we have here. Paul runs. That's our clause. Tim runs. That's also a clause. So we need a conjunction to connect these ideas. Now, you guys probably know the fanboy conjunctions, right? For, and, nor, but, or, yet, so. They connect independent clauses. Words like, Paul runs more slowly and Tim runs. But that's not a comparison. That doesn't compare Paul and Tim. That's not a comparison word. That's just and. This happens and this happens. That's not what we want to do here. We want to compare Paul and Tim. Someone asks, hey, those two guys running, who's faster? Well, Paul runs more slowly than Tim runs. And because that's a clause, here, then is acting as a conjunction. Okay? It's connecting this clause with this clause, but it's not only connecting them grammatically, right? Clause plus clause. What it's doing is expressing the meaning of comparing, right? Paul runs more slowly than Tim runs. Okay, now remember the dictionary chart said, then can be a preposition and a conjunction. So let's see how to use it as a preposition. Excuse me. Well, let's make another sentence. Paul likes pizza. Okay, that's a clause. Paul likes, object. Paul likes pizza more than steak. Okay, now steak is not a clause. Steak is just a noun. Right? Paul likes pizza more than steak. So if this isn't a clause, this is not a conjunction. Now it's functioning, same word, now it's functioning as a word that comes before a noun. Preposition. It's functioning as a preposition. It's the same word, but it can do two different functions. It can do two different jobs, right? It can do the job of a conjunction and connect a clause. It can do the job of a preposition and connect a noun. So you can say, Paul likes pizza more than steak. Right? Now there's other ways to say this and have the same comparison. You could say more than he likes steak. Right? Sorry. Paul likes pizza more than he likes steak. Now that's a clause, so now we can call that a conjunction. The what's on the other side here determines if this is a conjunction or a preposition. Okay? It changes its job, function, its job. That's why I don't like the idea of following rules, because this isn't about rules, it's about the job it's doing in the sentence, the syntax, the structure, the function of that word. What is it doing in the sentence? Here it's joining a noun, so it's a preposition. Here it's joining another clause, it's a conjunction. Okay? Paul likes pizza more than steak. Let's break out the bunnies. Actually, no, today we're going to use these guys. We're going to compare two penguins. Here's a penguin, and here's a penguin. Two penguins. Are they the same? No, they're different. Similar, they're both penguins, but there are also some differences. We can say, are they the same size? Not really. This penguin is taller than this penguin. Than this penguin, okay? That one makes a little noise too. This penguin is taller than this one. Now this sentence works visually if I say it and hold the penguins. Because if I just read this penguin, which penguin? This one, this what? You can't see them. But this is what I said. And now look, we have this one. That's a noun. And that's just a determiner pronoun. So this must be acting as a preposition, right? And there's a basic comparative adjective: taller, shorter, bigger, smaller, right? Older, younger. When you want to compare two nouns, this one and this one, taller, smaller, those are the comparatives. Now, that's than, right? And just like the dictionary told us, than is used to introduce the second part of a comparison. Let's see if that holds up. Paul runs more slowly than what? Than Tim runs. That's the second part of a comparison. Paul likes pizza more than what? Steak. That's the second part of the comparison. In fact, this is noun number one. This is noun number two. This is clause number one. This is clause number two. There's two things being compared, right? Two penguins. This penguin number one, noun number one, is taller than what? Noun number two, penguin number two, right? I'm comparing two things. So, excuse me, the air is dry in here today. Gosh. Then, in these examples, really does introduce the second part of a comparison. And it can be a clause or a noun. Okay? So far, so good? Nayana says it's clear. Great. Okay, let's move forward. We're always moving forward. Let me clear the board one more time. Now we're going to talk about rather than. I wish these could all be on the board together so we could compare them, the sentences. But I'm afraid I don't have space for that. So we're going to have to move forward, clear the board. Don't forget, guys, after this show live, I will post the recording on YouTube tomorrow morning so you can review this lesson and clarify anything that you still don't understand. You can review it. Okay. Let's go back to our dictionary, which told us that rather than is an adverbial preposition or conjunction. We've got to have a look at that. And it means instead of something. It's not introducing the second part of a comparison. That's what than does. So by the way, guys, we have three different meanings, and that's why we need three different words. That's why the English lexicon, or the total number of words in English, keeps all three of them. Probably, if they had the same function in a sentence, preposition or conjunction, and the exact same meaning, we would only have one word left. Two other words would have left the English use years ago. Okay? That's why I also don't like the idea of a synonym. Some of you have been taught that a synonym is synonyms are two different words with the same meaning. I dispute that. I think if we have two different words available, we have two different meanings. The meanings are probably slightly different, but they're different. So, because what happens with language is, if nobody's using it, if the word serves no purpose, because another word means exactly the same thing, then the first word will leave. Nobody will use it. It will go in the garbage. It will leave the dictionary. It will fall out of use. Lots of words have done that through history. So it's important to understand we need all three of these because they have different meanings. Okay, rather than. Let's look at that. Imagine I'm making a suggestion. Or let's say I had, choices to make, right? Instead of somebody or something. Instead of this, I chose this. Okay? You have two choices. You can choose this or that. Not comparing, we're choosing one or the other. That's what we're talking about now, okay? Choice. So for example, we've all been to school, and schools, for better or worse, mean exams. There's always exams to write. Let's look at this example. When I was in school, I chose to study hard rather than, let me get the red out. Rather than, okay. Rather than failing the exam. Gosh, that's a little bright, isn't it? Let me see if I can take down the adjustment here. One moment, guys. Let me just go over here to the camera department. Adjustment for better contrast. Okay? So let's identify the parts here. I chose, there's my clause. I chose to study hard rather than failing the exam. So what is this? Well, exam is a noun. The is just the article. What's failing? Well, we talked about this last week. Failing looks like a verb. It's not a verb. ing form of the verb is only a verb if you have the be verb first, like I am standing. They were studying. We are visiting. If you have the be verb with the participle, then it's a verb form. It's a predicate. Here it's not. Here it's a gerund, and a gerund is a noun. So this whole thing is a noun phrase. It's more than one noun. Therefore, if that's a noun phrase or a noun form of any kind, this must be operating as preposition. Okay? It's connecting this. Now let's think about the meaning. I chose to study hard. That's the choice I made to do that action. I chose not to do this action. So instead of this, I chose this. Okay? I did not choose this, rather than. So it looks like the thing you didn't choose comes after rather than. Okay? Let's say, we could also say something like, let's make a suggestion. Why don't we, let's imagine your friend wants to go out on Friday instead of watching Hard-Boiled English Live. Your friend wants to go to a movie, but you want to go to dinner, or you want to stay in and watch Hard-Boiled English Live. Why don't we watch Hard-Boiled English Live rather than the movie. So you have two choices. You can watch the movie on TV or at home, or you can watch Hard Boiled English Live with Teacher Paul, the grammar detective, on YouTube. Which one happened? Which one do you want? Well, this is a suggestion, so we're not sure which one happened. Like here we have I chose in the past, rather than the movie. Well, in this case, you're suggesting we do this. We watch this, noun, by the way, rather than this, noun. So because this is a noun, this is acting as a preposition, right? Rather than the movie. And we're not comparing. We are choosing. We want to watch this, not that. So rather than failing the exam, those are the choices you did not make. You chose this instead of this. This rather than this. Okay? That's how you structure that. And I think that's in keeping with our graphic. Instead of somebody or something. Okay? So it follows. Now, let's go back to that for a second. That also means, what we also have here is rather than as a conjunction. So we need an example of that. And a conjunction joins clauses. So we need two clauses. So let's see if we have an example. Let me see. How can we make a conjunction here? She well, we could say this. Rather than she watched the live show rather than the movie that played on TV. So over here we have a subject and we also have a verb. So that's a clause. This is a clause. Right? One clause, one clause. Now, when it's used as a conjunction, it's used as what we call a subordinating conjunction. And a subordinating conjunction connects an independent clause with a dependent clause. What's the difference? Well, an independent clause is a clause. It has a subject and a verb, but it's independent. It doesn't need help. It has a complete idea. For example, she watched the live show. That's a complete idea. But what if I said this one? The movie that played on TV. It's not a complete idea. It has a subject and a verb, but it's not a complete idea, right? That's a dependent clause. It depends on this clause to create a big idea, okay? That's when it's used as a conjunction. So far, so good? While I clean the board, give me your questions about this. Paul Wilson's asking, can we say Paul runs more slowly than Tim does? Yes, that was on the board. That was an example, absolutely. In fact, because of the repetition, we could say Paul runs more slowly than Tim runs and use the verb repeated. You can do that, but it's redundant because we don't like to repeat runs and runs. That's why we can say Paul runs more slowly than Tim. You don't need the verb there because you can avoid repetition. It's implied that Tim runs, but you could add does. No problem. Okay. Now it's time to talk about weather. And hopefully, as you noticed in the video, Nayana's video, weather is spelt differently than the climate-related weather. The snowy weather, the rainy weather, the sunny weather. They are all spelled differently. Okay, let's go back to our graphic and double check what we started with. So weather, W-H-E-T-H-E-R. It's a conjunction, so it's only a conjunction. That means we have to connect a clause and a clause. It's used to express a doubt or choice. That's important. It has two possibilities. We can express doubt or a choice between possibilities. Okay? That's different than instead of. That's different than comparison. This is express a doubt or choice between two possibilities. Let's remember that. Okay, let's see an example. Okay, let me try something here. Whether you, whoops, I did it again. We need red. We need red. Whether you travel, okay, or you don't travel, you can, actually I'm going to divide these two clauses into two. You can still learn about other cultures, right? We can learn about cultures online. We can communicate with friends around the world online. So let's look at the parts, break it down. You travel, subject, verb. Or you don't travel. Okay? This is the negative travel. Two choice, two possibilities. You can travel or you cannot travel. Two possibilities. Remember that. Remember the dictionary. Two possibilities. Express a doubt or choice. So you can choose to travel. You can choose to not travel. Doesn't matter. You can still learn about cultures. What do we have down here? Subject. Verb. And the rest is complement. So we have a clause and another clause. Now, this is a conjunction, but you'll see it's at the beginning of the sentence, not connecting the two over here. That's because this is a subordinating conjunction. Okay, and a subordinating conjunction connects an independent clause and a dependent clause. Both are clauses, subject, verb. But an independent clause is independent. It needs no help. You can say it and it has a complete meaning. It's a complete thought. A dependent clause has a subject and verb. It's a clause, but you cannot say it with a complete thought. It's not a complete idea. So which one is which? Let's test it. My test for the dependent or independent clause is an imaginary, what do you call that? Mental exercise. So imagine you walk up to a stranger at the bus stop and say your clause. Will they understand you? If they don't understand you, it's not a complete thought, so it's not independent, right? Let's try this one. Excuse me, you can still learn about other cultures. Oh, that's good news. Thank you for telling me. That's independent. It's a complete idea. You can still learn about other cultures. Great. Let's try the other clause. Excuse me, whether you travel or don't travel. It's not a complete thought. it's confusing. Whether you travel or don't travel, it sounds incomplete, right? It's not a complete thought, it's a dependent clause. So, this one is the dependent clause. This one is the independent clause. Right? And some of you may know this, but when you connect a dependent clause and an independent clause, you can switch them. You could start here. You could say, you can still learn about other cultures whether you travel or don't travel. Right? We can start here. You can still learn about other cultures whether you travel or don't travel. But if you start with the dependent clause in writing, you're going to need a comma. Right? The comma tells us, hey, even though that has a subject and a verb, even though it looked like a clause, it's not the main clause. That's coming after the comma. Okay? But if you start here, you don't need a comma. That's the rule, if you will. Okay? So let's just review that. Let's get our comma down here and our dependent clause here. So if you make a dependent clause first, comma, independent clause, right? And if you start with the independent clause, you no longer need a comma. I'll give you another example that you may be familiar with. I love sushi, subject verb, because it is, subject verb, delicious. Because it is delicious. There's my dependent clause. I love sushi, passes the bus stop test. Excuse me, I love sushi. Great. Excuse me, because it is delicious. Not a complete thought. That depends on this to create a complete meaning. Okay? So because is one of those subordinating conjunctions. And we could start the sentence with this one too. We could say, because it is delicious, comma, I love sushi. So the thing that's different about this word, conjunction, it's a subordinating conjunction. So it can start the sentence or it can be on the other end of it, right? These are reversible. Dependent, then independent. That's what we have up here. So let's switch our example around and see how it would look otherwise. Let's reverse this and start with the independent. You can still learn about other cultures whether you travel or don't travel. Right? Whether you travel or don't travel. You can still learn about other cultures whether you travel or don't travel. Here, it's connecting in the middle, right? But you can start the sentence with the subordinating conjunction like because, although, even though, if. All of those are subordinating conjunctions that connect an independent clause with a dependent clause, or start a dependent clause and then lead to an independent clause. And the meaning is, right? What's the meaning? The meaning is used to express a doubt or choice between two possibilities, right? You can still learn about other cultures whether you choose this possibility or that possibility. This will still be true, okay? Now, some of you have probably seen whether with another word, not. Whether or not. What does that mean? Well, it's another way of using the same meaning, right? You'll notice here we have the negative. Don't really just means do not, right? Not communicates the negative. And here's our or. So when you say whether or not, you're just taking a longer version of the sentence, same meaning, and just eliminating some repetition. For example, we have travel, travel twice. Let's cut one of those, right? Let's cut this one. And if we cut that verb, we can't have the auxiliary do here. So that's gone. Now we have whether you travel or not. That's one way to say it. Whether you travel or not. That's one way. Another way is to say whether or not you travel. Same words, just a different combination, right? Or not. Whether or not. Okay, so it's still conveying the idea of two possibilities. Whether or not still implies the two possibilities. Whether you travel or whether you not or don't travel. The positive and the negative are both offered. Okay? Nayana, does that help clarify for you? Facebook user is joining us. Hello, sir. Hello to you too. I don't know your name or where you're watching from, but welcome. Pardon me, guys. Somebody says, we miss you. Well, I miss you, but I don't know your name. Can you tell me who you are and where you're watching from in the comment? Okay. Any questions about this, guys? Any questions about using whether or not? And remember, whether was not a preposition. Whether is only a conjunction. So the two possibilities have to be expressed as a clause, subject and a verb, right? So we're not talking about two possibilities like I can eat the penguin, I can eat this penguin, or I can eat this penguin. We're not using whether for that. Whether is for clauses, not two nouns. So the possibilities must be expressed in nouns, travel, or don't travel, negative. Travel is a verb. It has to be expressed in a verb. A clause has to have a subject and a verb, right? Here we have you travel, or you don't travel. Doesn't matter. Whether has to be connecting two clauses, not two nouns. So when this graphic says, the definition says, used to express or doubt or choice between two possibilities, make sure those two possibilities are clauses, not nouns. Possibilities of things you can do. Thanks a million. I am Kumiko from Japan. Hi, Kumiko. Welcome. Welcome, welcome. Yes, it's clear, sir. Period. It. It what? Looks like you didn't finish your sentence. Any other questions about whether, guys? Whether or not? Any questions about than or rather than? I'll give you a moment to bring up some questions while I clear the board. Any questions, guys? Let's stick with this topic. Any questions about than, rather than, or whether? All clear? That means you guys are smart and good learners. That's a good thing. Well, I'll take a moment and mention some stuff. What do we have? So Wilson is asking, whether has the same meaning as if? No. If it had the same meaning, we won't need two words. Slightly different. Whether Wilson, whether expresses a doubt or choice between two possibilities. If doesn't do that. If expresses a conditional idea, right? If something happens, that's not a possibility in a sense, it's a condition. If this happens, a result will happen. Now, it works the same way, functionally, right? It's if is also a conjunction. If I do this, this will happen, right? One clause connects to another clause. But we're not expressing choice, right? I will wear a hat if what? If it rains, right? So we have a subject and a verb. We have a subject and a verb, two clauses. I will wear a hat if it rains. Now, this isn't a choice between possibilities. It's a choice based on a condition. If this condition happens, this result will happen. This is conditionals. That's different than choosing two possibilities, right? Whether is choosing two possibilities or doubting two possibilities. This will happen, right? This will happen if and only if this happens. If this doesn't happen, this doesn't happen. So if is connecting the relationship between result and condition, not the same as choosing two possibilities, okay? It looks similar, right? But this isn't necessarily a choice, right? This isn't necessarily a choice. It's expressing a result. So it may look the same. And if you're looking at a beginner or intermediate textbook, they may even tell you they're the same. They're not the same. Like I always say, if we have two words in English, they have two meanings. Otherwise, one of those words would disappear over time. And if and whether have continued over time because they both express something a little bit different. Okay? And now I didn't prepare a dictionary definition of if, but it's a conjunction. If is a subordinating conjunction, right? A subordinating conjunction, so it connects the dependent and independent clause. So it does the same function, but the meaning is slightly different. Great question. Gerald from the Philippines says, Jorol, sorry, it is clear, crystal clear, sir. Thank you for your comprehensive lecture. You're welcome. Thank you for joining the show. Thank you for watching. It's great to have you with us. Okay, let me just see something here, guys. Oh, by the way, two other language coaches and myself have created a podcast devoted to discussions about writing. Now you can find it on my YouTube channel, the same YouTube channel these recordings are on, the same YouTube channel that, English Weirdness is on. Okay, the podcast is called, where is it? Here. The Trouble with Writing. And we have our newest episode is available now. It's all about how reading helps your writing skills. So check that out if you're interested in improving writing and hearing tips from three, not just me, but three excellent writing coaches. Philip Charter from the UK, Pete Posner from the UK, and myself collaborate on this podcast. And those two guys help students in different genres of writing. Philip helps content writers and creative writers. Pete helps journalists. And I focus mostly on academic writers. So check that out, guys. It's a pretty interesting 1-hour podcast. All right. Let's see what else we have here. Thanks for the explanation, teacher Paul. You're welcome, Wilson. Thank you for watching the show and contributing with your fascinating questions, as always. Well, guys, already our time has passed. gosh, that happens quickly. I want to thank you all for joining me. It's been a very fast show for some reason. Maybe I talk too much. Anyway, thank you for your questions. Special thank you to Nayana from Sri Lanka for contributing the video that started this conversation. Nayana, let's give a big thank you to Nayana. Thank you, Nayana, for contributing. Hopefully Nayana finds it helpful. Apparently she does. So thank you, Nayana, for contributing the video. Guys, please, if you have other questions, it really is helpful if you send me a video. Just email it to me at hardboiledenglish6@gmail.com, and I'll build the show around your English mystery. Okay? And I'll also send you a copy of the video in advance so you can promote it to all your friends on social media, and they can join the show. So please send me your questions in the form of a video. Because, why? Well, it's simple. The show is boring if you just watch me all the time. So I'd like to bring your beautiful faces in the form of a short video question to the show. So it's a chance for you to participate. Also in the new year, I'll have a whole bunch of new guests joining the show. I haven't had guests for a while because I wanted to focus on answering all these questions, and I've got a kind of a bunch waiting. So I wanted to make sure we did that first and then bring some guests on. So please send me your videos, guys. And if you haven't already, please join us on the YouTube channel, The Grammar Detective. You'll find the recordings of this show. You'll find English weirdness. You'll find short clips. You'll find other interviews and podcasts I've participated in. But again, yes, send me your questions. Thank you, Chris. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for staying up late. Right? Yeah. Thank you, Jorel. Wherever you are, thank you. Thank you, Kumiko. Thank you, Chris. Thank you. Thank you, Nayana. Thank you for solving my question. It really helps. Great. Nayana, if you or your friends have other questions, tell them to send me videos. Okay? Well, guys, I guess that's all the time we have, so I should get ready to say goodbye. I will be here next Friday, 3 p.m. Pacific, as usual. Have another English mystery waiting to solve. I hope you'll join me then. Until that time, wish you the best of luck in the World Cup, whichever team you are in favor of and supporting. I hope they do well. I hope you take care of yourself, stay healthy. It's colder in some countries now, it's winter, so do take care of your health. Keep learning English, and until the next time I see you, stay cool. Thanks for watching tonight's show. If you have an English grammar question, an English mystery, contact me on social media and send me a video of you asking the question. I'll investigate it on a future show. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell button to get all the updates about videos and events. If you're feeling generous, you can also donate to the production costs of the show at Patreon or buy me a coffee. Finally, until the next time I see you on Hard Boiled English Live, I want you to keep learning English. Stay healthy and stay cool.